course, during our 82-game season, people are going to have bumps and bruises, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on. One of our favorite guys, never been an NBA All-Star, but a consummate professional. He is always bringing it 110%. That's Mike Conley Jr. He became the all-time leading scorer for the Memphis Grizzlies, so shout out to Mike Conley for that achievement. Definitely something to be proud of. And then in our What in the World segment, you had Jordan Bell, the Warriors guard. I'll let you explain this, Patrick. So this guy was suspended for what?
From what I got out of it, and I didn't get a whole lot out of it, but from what I got out of it, he used a coach's credit card, I guess, at a hotel to purchase something. I don't know what. I didn't really see the details.
God,
of
please
what
say it wasn't adult movies.
No. I think it was like food, or it was like down at the bar, or out somewhere, or something. That's what I got out of it. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I saw that it had happened before, but they just didn't realize it until recently. I guess it came up. So
sounds like the Golden State Warriors need to give Jordan Bell a bigger contract or get that guy some money on the road trips, give him some cash. That's a silly way to get suspended. And kind of put a bow on our news and notes section, but it's important we wanted to talk about. Two of you and I's personal favorites in the NBA, man. You had the San Antonio Spurs retired number 20, which belonged to obviously the great one, Manu Ginobili. And then the Miami Heat retired Chris Bosh's number 1 jersey. So no one will ever wear number 20 again for the Spurs, and no one will ever again wear number 1 for the Miami Heat. Let's start Manu Ginobili. I mean, when you think about Manu Ginobili, Pat, somebody says, hey, 5 years from now, when some young kid asks you, what do you think, or what are your thoughts and memories on Manu Ginobili, what comes to mind?
Clutch. When it comes down to needing a basket, when it comes down to needing a rebound, he was the guy. He was the guy for that Spurs team that took out LeBron James. He was the guy that the shots that he was making, the awkward shots, and the way he would just slash and cut to the rim. I mean, he reminded me of almost a Dwayne Wade-esque player. But obviously he didn't have the build of Dwayne Wade or the jump that Dwayne Wade had. He wasn't flash, but he had that. The Euro step. He just had this game where he was herky-jerky.
I don't remember the Euro step at all until he got into the NBA. I know it was around. I think he just made it super popular, I guess.
Yeah, but you just can't think of the Spurs, at least in my opinion, right now. And I'm pretty sure, I think it was Popovich or somebody that said, the Spurs wouldn't have won any of those championships without him. And I mean, it's true. He was the guy that really stepped up at the end of games and made big shots when they needed him most.
Yeah, when I think of Manu Ginobili, I think money. I mean, when it was time to make a play, whether it be on defense, a big-time three, a block shot to win the game, he could do it all. He's one of those guys that if you were playing pickup basketball and you saw that guy as a person you could probably draft, you'd probably be like, I'm good. He's the second-to-last draft pick. He's not your first pick just by the way he looks, but he's one of those guys that when he got in the basketball court and you saw him play, you were like, damn, this guy could ball, man. And I mean, that whole transition of coming from Argentina, getting used to the American culture, we play basketball. I feel like it took him a day to kind of figure out how Americans play basketball and how the game is played, and then being under the tutelage of Greg Popovich, perfect combination. I mean, this guy is a Hall of Famer, in my opinion. Should definitely be in the NBA Hall of Fame sooner rather than later, and one of the all-time greats, not just Spurs, but all-time great NBA players, period. What about number 1, man, Chris Bosh? I mean, besides the screaming and the yelling he used to always do to get the crowd hype, what are your memories on Chris Bosh?
What I remember about Chris Bosh, I remember when he was in with the Raptors and just how dominant a player he was. And then I remember what he did coming to the Heat to win the championship and how he adjusted his game so that Dwayne Wade and LeBron James could succeed in Miami. I mean, he definitely knocked down a lot of big shots in games as well, but I think it was more his energy. I think it was more his, what he did on the defensive end that really made those teams go at the time. So, I mean, he was just one of those guys. He kind of reminded almost like a Kevin Garnett type player is what he kind of mold a player. One of those guys, like you said, yelling, screaming, getting everybody involved, jump. It's the energy that he brings that just vibrates from him and goes to all the other players around him and just brings out the best in everybody. So, from what I understand, I've never met the guy, but one of real big stand-up guy, nice guy to be around, and it was good to see him get that championship when he came to Miami.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the guy has 2 rings, and I just think that when I think about Chris Bosh, I think of 2 things. You just talked about it. Unselfish. I mean, those guys all they signed were 20-point-per-game scores, and you knew LeBron James was going to take a back seat, and Dwayne Wade is the Miami Heat. So by de facto, Chris Bosh was the guy that went from averaging 25 points a game to 16 or 17 points a game, developing the key three-point shots he made. I mean, of course, we all know about Ray Allen and the big three he took to win that game for the Miami Heat against the Spurs. But the person that passed him the ball, who had that awareness, was Chris Bosh. And then also emotion. I mean, anybody who knows me knows my all-time favorite player is Kevin Garnett. And one of my reasons why I love Garnett is the emotion, the yelling, the screaming, the talking on defense. I'm all about that. And Chris Bosh was kind of a poor man's Garnett, like you said. That's another reason why I was a big fan of Chris Bosh. So, I mean, him, Manu Ginobili, two of the all-time greats in the NBA. Another thing this makes me feel, it makes me feel old. Seeing these guys that we idolize getting jerseys retired and retiring, it's crazy.
I'm telling you, man. You look at the final season for Dwayne Wade. I mean, I just can't wrap my head around that.
Yeah.
I thought it was the reason I brought that up too is I thought it was pretty cool because Danny Ainge actually gifts Dwayne Wade a piece of TD Garden floor from his last game there. So I think with what you see all these games where Dwayne Wade's exchanging jerseys with the other guys on the teams, but it's really cool to see Danny Ainge give him a piece of the floor to take with him, as a memento of just who he was and what he meant to the game that they play now.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely seeing some of the people that we grew up watching these last 10, 15 years, and they're getting sports old. Not old in real life, but in sports they're getting old.
Right.
And injuries and wear and tear. I mean, Chris Bosh, unfortunately, not really on his own terms. The blood clots wanted to come back, but we both know blood clots are not something to mess around with, so he made the right decision for himself and his family to hang it up. But definitely two of the best players we've ever seen on the NBA court get the recognition they deserve by their teams. Now, people have asked about it. They want to know, when's it start? Is it the beginning of the show? Is it the middle of the show? What unique stat and nugget will he give us today? Have no fear. Wait no longer. Ladies and gentlemen, the Hillwig Report.
Yeah, man. There's so much going on in the NBA right now with a lot of these young players and the talent that we're seeing come through the NBA. Before I kind of get into all that, I want to talk about a couple of teams that have kind of caught my eye. Two teams that I'm up on that I like right now. The Atlanta Hawks. And obviously I don't like them for necessarily the record or what they're doing as a team, but I just think that what they've put together with John Collins and Trae Young is a young nucleus that they can build around. And you talk about a guy, John Collins, this year averaging 19 and 10. Trae Young averaging 19 points, 4 rebounds, and 8 assists in his rookie season. The Hawks beat the Bucks, the Pelicans, the Sixers, and the Jazz. I mean, those are all playoff teams.
Except for the Pelicans, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, not all playoff teams, but the majority.
Yeah, right. I got you.
The other team that I really got to give a shout out to is the Orlando Magic. You know what I mean? I'll keep saying it. People doubt me. People can say whatever they want. But, man, the Magic, they beat the Pacers, the Heat, the Sixers, the Grizzlies, the Hawks. I mean, those are
playoff push.
Good, right. That's a playoff push right there. They're 7-3 in their last 10. They're making the Miami Heat, the Brooklyn Nets, and the Pistons, they're making them sweat. The way they're playing right now, those teams are sweating because they know when it comes down to it, Vucevic and Ross, I mean, they can make the shots and they can definitely do what they need to do. Aaron Gordon's been playing great
contract, lately.
Yeah, I mean, they're a scary team. Are they going to win? Are they going to win a playoff round? I don't know about all that. No, that's not going to happen. Couple of teams that I'm down on, man. I talk about it every week, but man, who are the Oklahoma City Thunder? Who are they? Are they Dr. Jekyll or are they Mr. Hyde?
I have no idea. It's frustrating.
I mean, seriously, they're 3-7 in the last 10. They've lost 2 in a row. They're eighth in the Western Conference.
You don't want that Golden State Warriors smoke.
That's a tough out though. That team right there with George and Westbrook, they
show up.
Right, if they show up. But that's the problem. They're so sporadic lately. So since Valentine's Day, they have 4 losses in a row, 2 times. They have back-to-back wins once since Valentine's Day, February 14th. They are 7-14 in their last 21 games.
Yeah, I don't.
Where did that? We're talking about a team that we thought was a top 5 Western Conference team.
Paul George MVP talk.
Right,
was strong at the All-Star break.
Right,
strong.
I mean, and that kind of fell off. I mean, clearly the shoulder injury kind of slowed that down a little bit. But still, when you got those 2 players, I mean, Adams, I mean, you gotta that's a good team. But
I thought
for
the Morris pickup would be a lot bigger for them than it has been.
Right. Well, for whatever reason, it's just not working. And the Nets. The Nets is my team right now that they got to really step it up. They're 5-5 in their last 10. They're only one game ahead of the Magic, so all they got to do is slip up 2 games and the Magic, lose 2 games and the Magic wins 3.
Yeah, the room for error for
right.
Brooklyn is real small.
Yeah, I mean they went 2-5 on that last road trip that they just had with wins over the Lakers and the Kings, and they're 19th in points allowed, averaging 112 points a game. So that's not, and I think if I'm not mistaken, they're giving up 112 points a game, and they score 112.3 points a game. So it's like any given night they can lose. There's not a that's not a good balance to have. You want to score more than they score, and of course. Karis LeVert, he just hasn't been the same since coming back from that injury. So, that team's one of those teams in the Eastern Conference that's got to look out. Now let's get to some players that, man, these guys right here, most of these guys, some of them I picked because I like what they've been doing recently, but man, Devin Booker. What can I say about Devin Booker? I mean, is he not Harden-esque? That's what they kind of say. He's Harden-esque the way he takes over the game. You know what the difference is? Devin Booker shoots 50% from the field when he scores 50 points.
Ooh, Devin Booker shots fired from back.
Devin Booker in his last 10 games, 37 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists, 1 steal, shooting 50% from the field. In the loss versus the Grizzlies, 48 points, 3 rebounds, 11 assists. He went 19 for 29 from the floor. In that loss versus the Wizards, man, I watched that game. That was crazy. That dude was just hitting every shot he was taking, getting fouled. It didn't matter. He was hitting everything. He had 50 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, a block, and a steal. Again, went 19 for 29. In a loss at the Jazz, he had 59 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, and a steal, and went 19 for 34. He's actually the youngest player to go back-to-back 50-point games. Now, I got some more stats on Devin Booker, but I'm going to keep on going with a couple of guys here, and then we'll hit those later. But Trae Young's another guy. He hit that game winner in overtime the other day to win versus the Bucks. Last 10 games, he's averaging 22 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists. And a steal. And then a loss versus the Blazers, he had 26 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists. In that game against the Bucks, he had 12 points, 5 rebounds, 16 assists.
Damn.
You're right. In the win against the Pelicans, 31 points, 1 rebound, 12 assists. And then in the win versus the Sixers, 32 points, 6 rebounds, and 11 assists. So, I mean, he's dishing the ball out, he's doing everything out there, and he's getting steals every game. So he's definitely a guy that's been playing well lately. Buddy Hield. Where would Sacramento be without him?
Buddy Buckets.
Buddy Buckets, man. The guy's averaging last 10 games. He's averaging 20 points. He had 26 in a win at the Spurs, 4 for 6 on the three-point line. In the loss to the Rockets and the Pelicans, he had 21 and 27 points as well. A guy that we really haven't talked much about, but I'm going to talk about him because, hey, the Warriors, they turn it on right before the playoffs. They might coast a little bit, and we can talk a little more about, of course, DeMarcus Cousins and Draymond Green and the kind of hiccups that they have gone through with flagrant fouls and stuff. But Steph Curry, man, the last 10 games, he's one of the best players in the NBA. 28 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. He had 25 points in a win versus the Hornets. In the loss at the T-Wolves, controversial loss. I'll put an asterisk next to that.
Yeah, we can talk about that a little bit.
Right. Loss at the T-Wolves, he had 37 points. In a win at the Grizz, he had 28 points. In a win versus the Pistons, he had 26 points. Going forward, man, James Harden. How can you not talk about James Harden with what he's done? He had a 50-point triple-double. 50-point triple-double in a win versus the Kings where he had
Didn't look very tired at all either.
50, 11, and 10. Right, the last 10 games, he's averaging 38 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists, a block, and 2 steals. In the win versus the Nuggets, so he has a win versus the Kings, and in the win versus the Nuggets, he had 38 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. And then in the loss against the Bucks, he had 23, 10, and 7. My last guy, the Sixers are one of the best teams. I mean, clearly they were in the top 5 for me. They're one of the best teams. One of the reasons why they're one of the best teams, Joel Embiid, your guy for MVP at the beginning of the season. I mean, he's lived up to every bit of it. Clearly, they give him a little bit of break every now and again. He had that stuff with his knee. But his last 10 games, he's averaged 29 points, 15 rebounds, 1 block, and 2 steals. He had 39, 13, and 6 in a win versus the Nets, In a loss at the Hawks, he had 27, 12, and 2. In a win versus Celtics, 37 points, 22 rebounds, 1 block, and 1 steal. So, I mean, that's
Beast mode has been activated.
Stat stuff.